Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today on the Church Brand Guide podcast. This is Michael Prasad. Today's topic is going to be about retaining guests. How does a church retain guests? And I'm eager to get into it. We have an interview that's going to come a little bit later on with Dick Hardy. But before we get there, I just want to let you know a couple things. First of all, I really appreciate those of you that have taken the time to leave a review on iTunes and just rank us. And it's really helpful. It helps us get the word out so that more people are coming along and able to listen to the content of this podcast. So I want to encourage you to do that. If you haven't done it, I really appreciate it when you do. Another thing to let you know about is that we are evaluating the podcast. So we've been doing it for about 3 quarters of this year, 2016, and we've been getting some great feedback. So based on the feedback, we're going to make some adjustments to make it even better. One adjustment is that we're going to go a little shorter on our podcasts. We're going to shoot to go for about 20 minutes. Might take us a little while to get there, but we're going to shorten things up, make it concise, and go for about 20 minutes. And then the other thing is that we are going to provide a lot more practical insights. So I have been working closely with Life Mission Church in Olathe, Kansas, as of about a month ago, about maybe a month and a half ago at the most. So I'm working directly with their leadership, directly with their communications team, and we are working on big ideas. And I want to share with you very practically what those ideas are and how they have been implemented and then what the results have been. So basically, we're going to get very, very practical with the podcast, which I think will help you the most if you can get great insight on exactly what's going on. So with that being said, let's get into a couple things that we are dealing with there at the church. So one of the big ideas is about retaining guests, and I think most churches are going to have that challenge. Even if you're a big church, you're always thinking, how can we retain more people? So one of the results that we found is that it sounds kind of cliche, but basically what got us to where we're at is not going to take us to the next level. So in the beginning, we had a great culture of just camaraderie and people coming together, and it was just great energy, and it led to a great amount of growth. But we realized that what happened there is not going to be able to take us to that next level. So we need to have a lot more structure. So that's another thing that we realize is that we've got to develop structure to support the growth. So if your church is growing and if you want to grow, you've got to develop more structure in order to get there. More systems, more checklists, more ways that we do things. We have to identify exactly who we are and get a lot of clarity about that so that we can grow. That's one of the realizations that we've come across. And honestly, it's not that easy. It sounds easy, but it's not that easy. Because a lot of times in church world, it's passion. It's, hey, let's go reach the world. Let's go do this thing for Jesus. And it takes time to slow down and create structure around that. One of the other big realizations is that the lead pastor can only have a limited number of direct reports. So when a church is small, the lead pastor is in contact with, just about everybody. So he can give direction and it's great. But as a church gets bigger, that cannot be the case. He cannot have too many direct reports, or else the church is going to be it's going to be capped at whatever level it's at in its growth. The other realization is that there has to be a clear vision presented so that other leaders can help the church grow. So again, when a church is small, the lead pastor can communicate vision one-to-one. He can just let people know what's going on. But as a church grows bigger, that vision needs to be presented, and it has to be written down. It has to be very clear. It has to be in a document. It has to be posted up on the wall, different things so that other leaders can jump on board and help the church grow. And the final thing we've learned about retaining guests is that we have to have feedback. So we have to have a way to learn from the people that are coming how they got there, what they think about the experience, what they like about it, and what they don't like about it. So we have to survey and begin to get feedback so that we can get the right things in place to provide growth moving forward. So what got us to where we're at is not going to get us to where we want to go in the future, and we've got to get feedback in order to know what to do next. So with all that being said, let's get into the interview with Dick Hardy. Dick is a wonderful expert in the area of church just church in general, has dealt with many churches around the country and brings a lot of expertise to the conversation. So we'll get right to it, and let's talk with Dick Hardy about how to retain guests. Thanks for joining me again on the Church Brand Guide podcast. Today I'm with Dick Hardy, and Dick works with churches, and I'm going to let him kind of describe what he does because he can do it way better than I can. But Dick, welcome to the podcast.
Michael, thanks very much. Really appreciate you having me. And just so your podcast listeners know that I'm just the definition of a jerk today for showing up a half hour, 40 minutes late here. So I'm just waiting for you to kind of, get this. You're going to get a meal out of me for this, aren't you?
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks, Dick. That's awesome.
Oh, man, what a great guy I am for showing up late. But hey, wow, this is really cool. I'm honored that you'd let me come on and do this. The Hardy Group is a pastoral leadership consulting firm. We started up in 2007. And little did we know that we started really doing individual consulting with pastors, but really have moved in the last 2 years to more digital resourcing for pastors. And our original tagline was everything but preaching. So a pastor would stop and think about that, and then they'd get it. Oh, yeah, you mean like budgets, bylaws, staff members, discipleship, small groups, everything, yeah. In today's world, social media, marketing, all those kinds of things. But now we changed it to all things church because we do dabble in preaching a little bit too. So for a pastor who wants our input. So, yeah.
Excellent. And how long have you been hanging around doing this stuff?
Well, we started in 2007, so we're recording this right now in fall of 16, so 9.5 years, coming up on 10 years. And my son joined me 2.5 years ago. You know my son, Jonathan.
Yes.
And well, I really never planned or dreamed that he and I would work together, but we're just having an absolute ball doing it. Yeah. It's cool. It really is. And
your background is actually out of church world, right?
My whole background has served 20, approximately. I spent 3 years in a parachurch ministry in the late 90s, but otherwise pretty much 20-some years in Des Moines, 22, I think, at a large church of, generally during the time I was there, it was generally 2,000. Then I came down to Springfield, Missouri, went to James River Church, which at the time I was there went from 3,600 to 4,600 in 2 years. Not because of me, but just to give you the framework of the size it was during the time I was there. Now it's over 10,000. Jonathan was on staff there as well after I was there. But then I went to work for a Bible college for 5 years. That gave me a great network, which I think is important, for people to really factor, pastors in particular, to realize you got to be continually talking to people, continually growing your people that you're connected with, because that expands your influence. If we want to share more of the love of Jesus, we need to expand influence. So the Bible college really afforded me that opportunity. So the knowledge from the two churches, the connection, the network at the Bible college really set us up, we believe, for the Lord to put this together. And it's cool.
Awesome. So I'm thrilled with all that. Man, I'm so thrilled to have you on. Thanks for coming on.
You bet.
Our topic in this episode is going to be about insights on retaining guests. So this is something that we come across all the time when we work with churches.
And you have the magic answer.
No, you do. That's why you're here.
For any of your listeners who think they're getting the magic answer, not going to happen. Not going to happen. It's a lot of hard work.
Well, it's insights. So we want to give some ideas. What have you learned in your world with all those different years of experiences in different industries? And we just want to unpack your experience so that we can learn from that.
It is an awful lot of hard work. Yeah. And I know I say it in a flippant way, but sometimes people think there's just the magic dust. If I could just learn what North Point does, I just learn what James River does, or Saddleback, or Elevation. If I learn these things, then that magic dust will work. It doesn't happen. Yeah. It doesn't happen. It truly, in my mind, some principles that need to be in place. One, there needs to be a culture of prayer at a church. If you're really going to invite, welcome, and retain guests. Now, sometimes pastors can say, well, really? Okay, we pray. And I'm talking about really getting a hold of the mind of the Lord for how he wants you to treat the people, his children, that come in your doors. So I think that's fundamental. That has to be. You can do this without prayer, but you're not going to be able to do it near as well. So, of course, I'd say, why would anybody in a church setting want to do something that isn't inculcated in prayer? So that's first. Second, the pastor's got to believe it. Michael, believe this or not, I come across pastors that will do the guest retention thing only because they know they're supposed to. They're not really owning it. And if you're just doing it because, okay, this is a checklist that some guy on a podcast said to do, you're going to lose. You really have to own it. You got to want to do this. And honestly, I see too many pastors. They want the end result, that people, but they don't really want to pay attention to the things they need to do to get there. And something at the end of the day, I'll wrap with this part with this. I mean, you can whatever you want to throw back at me, but you got to pay attention to what you're doing on Sunday.
Yeah.
Here's the one I didn't even think about doing this. I love this one. Let's suppose I come to town, and you tell me, okay, because you and I live in different cities. You say, hey, listen, there's a new restaurant that opened. I'm going to take you to it. So Michael and Dick head off to this restaurant. We show up at the restaurant. The parking lot's broken up. It's dirty. There's weeds growing in the bushes. And we go to the door, and we walk in the door. Nobody's there. And you and I wait. This restaurant told us how great, advertised it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Wait. Finally, somebody says, so we ask them if we can get a seat. Yeah, they take us to a seat. We sit down. It's sticky. It hasn't been cleaned.
Yeah.
And we wait. Finally, we get a server over here. The server comes over, takes our order, goes back, and we wait.
Yeah.
And you hear where I'm going with this thing,
Yeah.
okay? And finally, the food comes out, and guess what? The order is wrong. So they send it back, and finally it comes back, and the order is right, but the food is cold. We eat it, we wait, we get the bill's wrong, and finally they say, oh no, we only do cash, neither of us have cash. Closest ATM is 2 blocks down the road, so you chase off to get some cash. Finally we pay our bill, we walk out, nobody says anything. Then, the next week, we get this letter in the mail, and the letter in the mail says, hey Michael, hey Dick, thanks for coming to our restaurant. We loved having you. We hope you enjoyed your experience. Boy, don't forget, we'd love to have you come back next week. We've got a special menu for the kids. We're going to give you a $5 coupon. Let us know if we need anything, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. You and I going back?
Right. No.
Ain't no way.
No.
We're not going
Right.
back. Why? Because the experience was so crummy.
Yeah.
Now, here's a word that pastors never like to use. You never like to talk about, well, do you do crummy church? But there are churches that do crummy church.
Yeah.
They don't pay attention. They just do what they've always done, and then they wonder why the guest doesn't want to come back. I've got all sorts of stuff rolling in my mind here right now, and I don't know if it's going to fit our schedule here, but
Yeah.
I mean that's the illustration I want to give to
Yes.
pastors, and every pastor, any pastor in America, around the world that's listening to this. No matter how good your church is, you need to step back and say to that Sunday experience, how could it be better?
Yeah. It's good.
So,
It's real good. So the Sunday experience, how can it be better? So that's a mindset that every church needs to adopt. If you're going to retain guests,
Yeah.
you've got to have the best experience that you could possibly put out there
Right.
within your means, right?
Yeah, because
some churches can do more.
Well,
some
but most of this
Yeah.
is people. Most of this,
Yeah.
when guests leave, let me ask you, see if I can get you. We haven't rehearsed this, so this
No.
may not work.
All right.
But if I call pastors, and I'm going to ask them about their church, and they love their church and everything, and I'm going to say to the pastor, tell me about your church. You know what one of the first things they say to me? Let's hope this works.
Okay.
They say, well, our church, they're talking about their people. Our church is a really
Friendly.
church.
Yeah.
They all, nobody ever tells me they pastor a grouchy church. Nobody. They all pastor friendly churches.
Yes.
But what's one, if people go to a church and then don't come back. What's one of the main reasons they say don't go back?
They're not
that
friendly.
church wasn't very friendly. Now, how can that be?
Yeah.
Everybody pastors a friendly church, but people leave and say it wasn't very friendly. See, a pastor has to bridge that. So, anyway.
Well, I think what happens too is that sometimes you get caught up in your own world and you start thinking about the people that are already there and you forget about new people coming in.
You're nailing it. Because people are friendly to themselves. Now they give cursory friendship to a new person.
Yeah.
So if I'm a greeter, I'm at the front door, I'm certainly going to smile and say, "Hey, well, Michael, great to," or if I don't, "Hey, great to meet you. Hope you have a great day."
Yeah.
But the big telling key normally for a church is what is happening after service. See, my job as a greeter before service is to welcome you.
Yeah.
My practice after service is I want to go talk to Tom and Ron and Dennis because they're my buddies.
Yeah.
And we want to talk about the game last night and all that kind of stuff. But if I'm coming back and I'm talking to you, Michael,
Yeah.
then that's telling me that the church is focused on the guest.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And I think too another thing we've seen is is a church being very intentional about the experience to the point of even signage. You know, we one church we work with, they've got 3 buildings. One of them's called the Worship Center, the other one's called the Family Life Center, and the third one's kind of a barn-looking thing, so they call it the barn. But when I first went there, they would say, "Hey, this event is in the Family Life Center," and as a guest, I'm not sure. They kind of all blend together in my mind. So one of the things is "Hey, can you just call it building 1, 2, and 3?"
Well, it really is right. I remember I've talked to a number of churches on this, but one I remember specifically up in Iowa I was talking with, and just said, when they had on the wall that the bumblebees go this way,
right,
and the spiders go that way. Probably wasn't spiders, but and I says, you could probably look at that and guess that's kids of
Right.
some sort. But is it 2-year-olds or 8-year-olds?
right.
There's a difference.
Yes.
And so you need to be more clear and say, 8-year-olds go that way.
Right.
2-year-olds go that way, even though they're called bumblebees and spiders or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Signage is really huge. I mean, you just have to be clear. You think, and it's and intentional. You use the word intentional. Inside the church, we know all this stuff.
Yeah.
But you've got to think outside.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
That's really good. And I've heard you also talk about the wow experience. Mm-hmm. Is this part of the thing that you would say to present a wow experience to your guests?
Yeah, and when I say wow, by the way, there's 2 different kinds of wows. There's the wow, oh my good. That generally is not what I'm talking about here. What you want are those nice little, wow, that was nice. Or you and your wife are there. Wow, honey, did you see that? That was really nice for the kids. Wow, that's a nice touch. You want those kind of feelings so that when they walk out, they just say, wow, that was really nice. Mm-hmm. Or, wow, what do you think, honey? Kind of like to go back to that.
Yeah.
I've heard it. I don't know if there's any stats on it. You want people having 5 wow experiences before they sit down.
Oh.
So the wow start at the parking lot. Mm-hmm. They come to the door. They're at the guest center. They're at the children's check-in. Mm-hmm. So you just have to create those kind of experiences. You got to be very intentional about it.
Yeah. So on the practical side of things, when we talk about how to create this great experience, I think one of the greatest tools we can use to figure out what this looks like for us, for your church, is going to be surveys or guest cards.
Right.
Maybe can you talk about
Well,
how
I
to
can.
use those?
And our mutual friend Ryan Wakefield is like the master of this thing.
Sure.
He really has put that together for Summit Park Church, and he's the driving talent with Church Marketing University. And he really, and he rightly says, you've got to ask people for feedback. I mean, a quick example. I just had a friend of mine moved to a new city, major city. I referenced him to a church. I told the church about the friend. The guy went and visited the church, met the pastor, a 90-second conversation, all good. He's been there a total of 4 times now. He sends me this text. that's a very painful text
Oh yeah.
to read, because he's saying we want to connect here, but we can't seem to make it happen.
Huh.
Now, that is gold. That's hard for a pastor to hear, but that's gold. You know why? Because most people won't tell you that.
Yeah.
And most churches, what? They don't ask. That's why to survey people will be so valuable. Now, pastors are nervous about surveying people.
Yeah, talk about that.
Well,
we've had that pushback.
Yeah, oh man, I don't want you. Number one, you're going to get flaky responses. You're going to have people that say dumb things, like, I wish you wouldn't sing songs. I wish you wouldn't have it so loud. I wish you would have the light. All these things that you just say, well, we're not going to do because this is the direction we're going. You got to wade through that. But somebody's also going to say something like, I stood in line for 10 minutes just to get one kid checked in.
Yeah.
Well, antenna up, you better be paying attention to that.
Right.
And that kind of thing, that could be fixed.
Yeah.
Pay attention and fix that. Yeah, I'll guarantee you, that's what Disney's doing. That's what Ritz-Carlton are doing. Anybody who is doing it well, I don't know, does Chick-fil-A have guest comment cards? I bet they do.
They do.
Yeah,
I've got kids, I know.
Ryan talks about,
Yeah.
Ryan talks about a time he had a bad restaurant experience.
Yeah.
And he wanted to fill out a response just to help them, and there was no response card.
Right.
So guess what? That restaurant keeps giving bad experiences. And almost predictably, they would be out of business.
Yeah. So there's different tactics that churches use that we've come across. And I don't know if you can speak to it or not, but let me just kind of mention a few of them. So for a good guest experience, a lot of pastors will go meet people in the lobby afterwards. Is that a good idea or bad idea?
I like it. I've got two very large church pastors that at least inside of one fellowship, everybody would know these two guys, both in very, very large mega churches. And one does not do that. And it's not in an arrogant way, but he feels like it's intimidating to people. I don't. I agree with this guy on most everything, but I don't on that one.
Yeah.
The other guy, he literally is so intentional on the platform. Before his message, he's just saying, listen, I want to meet you after service. So go out those doors and to the right, there's a little spot over there which says Guest Central or whatever it says.
Yeah.
I want to meet you there. We've got some nice Starbucks coffee and some goodies, and let's connect up. So I like that because people want to feel like in a big, particularly in a really big church, the sense is a really big church is impersonal. They want to feel like they can connect. In the smaller church, they can do that easier. So, but I say for all size churches, they need to go back there. Now let me tell you what not to do.
Yeah.
I saw one church that took my advice on that, but going back to see the pastor became a receiving line. Where everybody got in a line to go up and shake the pastor's hand. That's not what this is to be, because that's just him.
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you, the example I gave you, the guy who's been there 4 times and hasn't figured out a way to connect in.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what happened with him. He went up, had a nice chat with the pastor, and then nothing. Well, that church's mistake is you got to hand off. You got to hand off to a real person. So if a Michael or a Dick are working and our spouses are working in the guest area, the pastor needs to hand that person, the guest, to like a real person. You can sit there and talk, get acquainted, maybe give them a little tour of the place, even if it's a small church. Give them a little, well, here's the kids area down here, and here's the restrooms over here. Loved having you, and blah blah blah. Maybe we can connect up, that kind of thing. Right. Otherwise, in this guy's case, this was a sharp couple. This is a couple you want in your church, but they're on the edge right now. That church may not get them, because they're not paying attention to the hand. They met the pastor,
right?
But then there was no other real person to meet. So I'm big in that hospitality area for the pastor to be there, but you got to have other people there too.
What about membership classes? You have a insight on that? Like, is that so? We're talking about retaining guests.
Yeah.
So, is a membership class going to be a good way to do that? Or is it some other type of
Well,
approach?
I mean, there's all sorts. Membership is, particularly in the newer churches, is less and less value
Yeah.
to the newer. I mean, the people under the young bucks your age and younger, they're not bringing in membership. They're not. I mean, back in the old days, you used to transfer memberships inside of a denomination.
Oh, yeah,
I had
right.
a membership at this church,
Right.
and I go to that church. I just well, those are pretty much gone. There are new terms for it. Churches will use the term partners. I advocate less congregational driven governance. But let's use the word membership as part of an official, I belong to this church in a more traditional sense. I don't have any problem with that. But you just want to systematically help take people from walking in the door through the guest experience into something
Yeah.
that begins to move them to whatever your ultimate end is. And if your ultimate end is, I want them to become a member of our church, then you've got to have steps to get there. Very few churches really have that systematically laid out. I mean, even to the point if they think they have it laid out, you can't get the pastor and the staff or the key lay people to all say the same thing, which just tells you to the guest it's not clear at all. So yeah.
maybe it's like a small group, and then maybe you join a team, or maybe something like that. Then eventually,
yeah, if people are going to assimilate in my mind,
Yeah.
like I work in post-service hospitality at the church I attend.
Okay.
So we're racing out after service, and I'm back in this little hospitality area. And where our pastor does not come back. And I tell people regularly, if you're going to be at this church, which is a mega church, you've got to get involved in one or both of these, a small group or a ministry. Because if you stay here very long at all, while you'll love the preaching, you'll love the worship, you'll say to yourself, this place isn't friendly, because you can't know all these people. In a small church, you've got to do the same kind of thing, because otherwise, Rick Warren said back in the day that in the average church, you're going to know 67 people. So if you're in a small church of 67 people, you can know everybody.
Yeah.
But you can't really know everybody, and you can't have 67 deep, close personal friendships. And when people are coming to church, particularly your generation, I don't know if your audience knows you're just such a young, cool guy, but the under 40 crowd, they're
Yeah.
coming there for a relationship. They want to connect with people. Even my job, I got kids and grandkids, and if I were to move someplace, I want to connect into a church that I can begin to find some friends.
Yeah.
So as a church, you need to be very intentional of addressing that felt need of your guest. You can just be assured that when somebody is a guest there, they're asking, certainly they want a good Bible, good worship, and so on, but they want to meet people.
Yeah.
We have to afford that opportunity.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we unpack a lot of this stuff, or you do, with Ryan, like you talked about in Church Marketing University. What's a good way for people to connect with you?
Well, certainly you can go to our website, thehardygroup.org, thehardygroup.org, and we've got a litany of things, just free stuff you can take advantage of. Of course, we have some things, some memberships you can be involved with. You can connect with us overall, particularly with Ryan at churchmarketinguniversity.com. At this time, at this recording, that's closed. You can't get in, but you can get on the wait list, which will give you preferred access when we do open it up, which is going to be sometime after the first of the year. But my email is there on the website. It's dhardy@thehardygroup.org. So pretty simple.
Yeah.
Pretty simple stuff. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast
Yeah,
today.
man, we just scratched the surface.
I know. That's what I always feel like that.
I like a little shorter. I don't know how long this thing has been, but I like staying a little shorter. But we got a bucket load of more stuff to talk about. So.
That's what and I know just from my experience with Church Marketing University, you go a lot deeper into these conversations
Right.
and these topics. So,
Yeah.
So I guess I would want to encourage everyone to check out the website, thehardygroup.org.
Yeah, .com sends you to a construction company in Florida. So if you're at the construction company, you're at the wrong place. I mean, unless you want to build something, but yeah, .org.
Well, thanks again, Dick, for coming
Absolutely.
on the show.
Yeah, love it. Thanks, Michael.
My hope is that this episode today gives you very practical insights of what you can do as a church to build a brand that retains guests and that you begin to grow as a result of this. So to continue to provide value to you, I want to provide a resource, and it's a book that I recommend. It's called The E-Myth Revisited, and it's by Michael Gerber. This book is all about creating structure within an organization that allows the organization to scale up, to grow, and to develop people and then expand. So it's really a business book, but it applies to churches in a big, big way. So I want to recommend it again. It's called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Thanks again for listening. We went for about 30 minutes, and hopefully the adjustments that we're making is providing a lot of value to you. I'd love to hear your feedback so that we can make it even better. So you can reach out to me directly by emailing me at michael@persadcreative.com. So again, it's michael@persadcreative.com. Persad is spelled P-E-R-S-A-U-D. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining me again on the podcast. Make sure you check out our blog at churchbrandguide.com. We've got a bunch of free resources there that you can download to help you design logos, build websites, create videos, and a bunch of great stuff to just build a strong brand in your community. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time.